What are some of the tactical things that we could do in order to get started in data analytics right now? And there are two areas that we can really put our focus on. One is, how do we get started in building an analytics practice and making this part of our DNA, and just how it is that we as learning do business within the organizations whom we serve. The second is, how do we even get some experience and start to get our learning teams onboarded and start working with our stakeholders, especially the business, in new ways by being able to apply data analytics to a project. So one of the resources that you can use from the more strategic level and looking at what really is a 2-year roadmap in order to be able to build out an analytics practice within the learning function is actually an article series that I've been writing for Training Zone. So you can take a look at Training Zone online, and it's a 6-part series, completely free, you don't even have to sign up for it, that actually walks you through being able to apply data analytics at a strategic level and at a tactical level. And you can go through the article series and either go through it from start to finish or just pinpoint where in the analytics methodology you currently have a gap that you need some help in order to be able to move that practice forward. So there's at the strategic level. You can also use the Training Zone article series that I've written in order to be able to apply that to a specific project. So let's say that you want to introduce data analytics to a particular learning and performance initiative that you've got coming up. So some other resources that you can use in order to assist you in that, in addition to the article series, would be things like David Basarab's book, Predictive Evaluation. And what I like about predictive evaluation is, number one, predictive evaluation is actually an analytics methodology that David introduced to Motorola University back in 1991. He's since used that methodology around the world with a number of different organizations and has had quite a lot of success in being able to use it as a basis for somewhere familiar for us to get started with, right? How do we start with some data sources and a methodology that might feel familiar to us to some degree or another? Check out predictive evaluation and take a look at that. Another resource would be the Kirkpatrick's. If you take a look at the Kirkpatrick model, and the Kirkpatrick model was always intended, or at least since Jim and Wendy Kirkpatrick have taken over the model since Donald Kirkpatrick's retirement back in 2011, it's been intended to actually start with level 4 with business results and work backwards down to level 1. Now that being said, many of us have perhaps with our teams been working on level 1 evaluations. That's something that's very common in the L&D function around the world. And to be honest, lately, level 1 evaluation forms, otherwise known as smile sheets or happy sheets, have kind of gotten a bad rap. Like, people have been dismissing them, and there's probably not, any kind of information or data on them that makes any sense or can be used in any kind of meaningful way. Two things with that. Number one is, some of the data that you're collecting is probably a wealth of gold. You've just never thought of it as that. And one of the items that I would take a look closely on that you've probably amassed over a number of years is the qualitative data that you have collected in the comments. So maybe the quantitative questions that you've asked, maybe they're not up to the par or up to the level or the standard that you now want to have, but you probably have a rich history of comments and feedbacks that you can now actually analyze in a number of different ways. You can do sentiment analysis on it, you can take a look at topic analysis on it, you can take a look at language patterns, you can take a look at a number of different ways of how do people talk about what means something to them. Because if people took the time to actually fill in comments, then they were compelled to do that either because they were exceedingly happy or exceedingly sad clown about something. And that data can actually be analyzed in the aggregate to give you some really rich insights into some things that are happening with your population. The second thing is, it's not the instrument. It's not the Kirkpatrick Level 1 evaluation forms that are the problem. It's that we've been putting the wrong questions by and large on that instrument. The instrument is perfectly valid. Where it is that it falls within a methodology, perfectly valid. What we need to do is optimize and come up with better questions. And so there are better items that we can include on our level 1 evaluation forms that can even get us to predictive and can get us to predictive within 90 days. And if you want more information about tactics and really getting into the weeds on that, then one of the resources that I would highly recommend is the work that I've had the privilege of working on with myself from one of my colleagues who's Ken Phillips, based out of the Chicagoland area. And Ken has created what's called PLA, the Predictive Learning Analytics Formula, which basically walks you through a methodology that he created. So Ken created an algorithm, I created the implementation plan on how it is that you can use something like as familiar as a smile sheet in order to optimize it with the right questions to be able to collect data that can help you to predict in a particular training effort who most likely will or won't actually apply what they learned back on the job. So those are a number of different resources from a very tactical standpoint that we can use at either of those levels, way down in the weeds on being able to apply data analytics to a project, or way up in the strategic stratosphere in being able to build an analytics practice.